Hi guys, this is Jen from DaJen Eats. Welcome to another one of our cooking tutorials. Today we're going to do a vegan breakfast staple, kind of like vegan breakfast 101. It's something that, every vegan should know how to master. But don't worry, it's really simple and the results are really delicious. Today we're going to do tofu scrambles. It's going to end up very similar in texture and taste to eggs, for example, but we won't be using eggs. If you're not sure why vegans don't eat eggs, I did an excellent podcast about that. You can visit us on SoundCloud /DaJen Eats to find out more about that. And I even have it on my website, DaJeneats.com, where you can go and listen to that. It really outlines what happens in the egg industry and why vegans choose not to incorporate eggs in their diets. But enough of that. We are looking at tofu today, and we're going to be using firm tofu. If you go to the grocery store, you'll notice sometimes you'll see tofu with different names like silken tofu, firm, extra firm. And what that refers to, it's the amount of moisture that's in the tofu. Silken tofu has a lot of moisture in it, a lot of liquid, and that is perfect for smoothies and sauces. But when you want to make the eggs, you want to go for something firm. So you can go anywhere from firm to extra firm and you'll be fine. Before we get started, let's talk a little bit about what tofu is. I know for those who are not too familiar with it, we hear some strange things about it. It seems like this weird, strange, spongy food. But rest assured that tofu has been around for quite some time. And it is as simple as soy milk with something that's a lot of us are familiar with. It's really soy milk with a coagulant, meaning it's soy milk with something added to it so it will firm up. So the coagulant is added to the milk, then it is pressed and put into a mold to form a block. The most common tofu that you'll get perhaps in your grocery store come in blocks that look very similar to this. It is packed in water to keep it fresh. So we take it out. Okay. If you just touch it, you'll notice that the block of tofu has a lot of liquid. If you'll see on the board, just by putting it down and gently touching it, a lot of the liquid is coming out. The thing about tofu, if you are on the brighter side of things, you'll say that tofu has a mild flavor. For some of us who are not, so politically correct, we'll say that it is bland. And it is in fact quite bland. But that makes it perfect in cooking because it doesn't have a strong flavor of its own, and it also takes very well to different flavors that you add. So basically, if you season the bejesus out of tofu, it's gonna end up tasting really yummy because it takes the flavor very well. The thing that will block us from maximizing on flavor is the moisture that is in this tofu. If you think of flavor like this, it is not an infinite commodity. In any particular ingredient, it will only absorb so much flavor and no more. There's only room for so much. So in order for this block of tofu to maximize on flavor, in order for you to get as much flavor inside of it, you have to get some of the moisture out. And we do that simply by pressing the moisture out. You can do that by wrapping the tofu and placing it in a plate, then put another plate on top of that and put something heavy like a skillet or some canned goods and press it down for 15-20 minutes and you'll get a lot of the moisture out. In my kitchen, we tend not to have a lot of paper towels. So I use this tofu press, which does the same thing. And essentially we'll put the tofu in and press it down. Since I'm only cooking for two, I'm going to have this block of tofu would make enough scrambles for about 4 people. So if you have 4 people, 3 or 4 people in your household, feel free to double this recipe. So I simply half the tofu, put it in the press, so you can see. Let me get that out of the way. See, there's a lot of liquid. That's the water that it's packed in. And tighten. And that's it, guys. We're gonna let this press. If you can see the water is dripping out of it, that is fantastic. We're gonna let this press for about 15 to 20 minutes to get out most of the moisture that's in there, and then we'll come back and I'll show you how to make the scrambles. See you soon. Okay, darlings, it has been about 15-20 minutes and we have pressed out most of the moisture in our tofu block. So we're just gonna take it out of my little press. Alright. Okay. We got it. This is what it looks like, darlings. And let's compare it to the other half that we had. You can see it has been really pressed out. Okay. If you notice, there's still a bit of moisture in there. This is intentional. Normally, if I'm going to make tofu, say fried tofu to use as the meat in a dish, for example, then I would squeeze out all of the moisture. But because I'm using it as a scramble, then I leave some of the moisture in because we're going to need a bit of that moisture to cook some of the seasonings and spices that we'll use. So now you just want to crumble it in large chunks as you'd imagine the scrambled eggs to be. You don't want to make it too fine. So you're going to end up with really a fluffy scramble. Alright. I think those chunks are small enough. Okay, good. And the first thing we want to add to this is a bit of tamari sauce. I have not plated out or measured out a lot of the things that we're going to use because they may be unfamiliar things to those who are new to veganism or those who are not quite familiar with some of the ingredients that are very popular in vegan cooking. So I wanted to show you the tamari sauce. The tamari sauce is a lot like soy sauce, except there's no wheat in it, which means that there is no gluten. It is popular in Japanese cooking. Soy sauce is more popular in Chinese cuisine. It has a richer flavor and darker color because it takes a lot longer to make tamari than it does the soy sauce. But the main difference between the two is the presence of wheat. So we're going to do about 2 teaspoons, there we go, of soy sauce, of tamari sauce, pardon. And guys, if you don't have tamari sauce and you have soy sauce, feel free to use it instead. We're not looking for, a lot of color from it. We're really just looking for an infusion of flavor. And to that, you want to add about 1/4 teaspoon of garlic powder. Yeah, about that. Gives it a nice flavor. And really that is all that we add to the tofu before we start to scramble it. You would set this aside and let the tamari sauce and the garlic kind of marinate into the tofu. So maybe about 10 minutes or so, and that will be enough. So I'll see you in 10. Okay, my darlings, it's been about 10-15 minutes and the tofu has really soaked up a lot of the flavor from the tamari sauce and the garlic. So we're going to go ahead and start cooking, which is why you're here, yes? Alright, we're going to take a heavy bottom skillet and heat it. Let's see. We're going to heat it maybe about 2 minutes. We're going to make sure the pot is nice and warm. We've already done that. And to the warm skillet, we're going to add about 1 tablespoon of oil. Here I'm using olive oil. You can use coconut oil or any neutral flavored oil of your choice. We're going to let that oil heat up. One of the tricks to knowing when the oil is ready is when you turn the pan, you should see legs. This is not quite ready, so we're going to give it maybe a minute or so, and then we'll come back and check it out. Okay, darlings, as you can see, when you turn the pan, the oil has legs. Very similar to, when you're drinking a glass of wine and you swirl it and you see the legs come down in the glass. It's similar to that. You should see the legs in the pan, and that tells you that the oil is hot and ready. And to that, we're gonna add 3 tablespoons of chopped onion. I like sweet onion, so that's what I use, but you can choose the onion of your choice. And add 1 tablespoon of green pepper. Now, I have a neighbor who doesn't like green pepper, so you can use, you know, whatever pepper of your choice. You can use red pepper, yellow pepper, whatever bell pepper of your choice, but I like the mild flavor of the green. I'm gonna add a little bit of salt and pepper because we're building flavor as we go. It's always better to add a little bit of salt and pepper as you go along, rather than add a lot of salt at the end of cooking, because if you're tasting it at the end of cooking and you're adding salt, essentially what you're tasting is the salt, and too much salt in that short time will actually deaden your taste buds, and you can end up over salting the meat considerably. So guys, build some flavors with me, and add salt and pepper as you go along. And that's the rule of thumb. Each time you add something new to the pot, you sprinkle it with a little bit of salt and pepper. That is going real nice. And we're going to continue doing this until the onion is translucent. It's even okay if you want to go until it starts to brown just a little bit, but not too much. And that's probably going to take you, I don't know, maybe 2 to 3 minutes. Okay, darlings, we're starting to get a little browning on the onions. At this point, we're going to add the tofu. And if it's not starting to look like eggs yet, don't worry, it will. Just give it some time, right? You want to stir it all up so that the onions and the green pepper get incorporated with the tofu and they don't continue to burn. And as usual, we sprinkle it with a bit of salt and pepper. We're going to let that sit, cook for maybe another 2 minutes until the tofu starts to brown slightly. Okay, we're starting to get a bit of color on the tofu, which means now it's time to add some of the spices. We're going to add maybe about half a teaspoon of turmeric. Turmeric is an ingredient that we use in curry, but when we use it in small amounts, it's not going to impart any flavor really. It's just to get the tofu to get a dark color. And we're going to add about a tablespoon of nutritional yeast. A lot of the vegans call it noosh. And we're also going to add my secret ingredient, the thing that makes it taste like eggs. Indian black salt, also called kala namak. We're going to do maybe about a teaspoon of this. It's very potent. We'll mix it all around. If you notice, guys, now it's starting to look like eggs. Now, you don't want to put too much turmeric in it, and then you'll get the eggs to look like in a natural yellow color. In Jamaica, when we have colors that are so bright and unnatural, we call them shocking color. So like you have shocking color green and shocking color yellow. You want to make sure you don't end up with shocking color yellow eggs, right? And if you notice, I'm just adding maybe a teaspoon or so of water to the mixture, and that's to make sure that the seasoning, the spices that we've used, that they'll cook a little bit. So you don't have that burnt or blackened flavor. Let's talk a little bit more about nutritional yeast. We're going to let this stay for maybe 2 to 3 minutes, so we have some time to chat, my darlings. Nutritional yeast, if you can see the package, it's usually sold in packages like this, or at your health food store you could probably get it in bulk. It's a staple in vegan cooking. It has a nutty flavor, and it's kind of cheesy. So a lot of vegans sprinkle this on their food to get the cheese flavor. And what it is, it's deactivated yeast. It's yeast that has been soaked in nutrients, and then it is deactivated by killing the yeast at high temperature. And this means that nutritional yeast will not cause your breads to rise. It's no longer a leavening agent. The yeast is killed, but it has a lot of flavor and it has a lot of nutrients. In fact, It's a complete protein because it has all 9 essential amino acids in it. And the secret ingredient, darlings, that's going to make the eggs taste eggy, your tofu actually tastes eggy, is the Indian black salt. And this is, it is not pleasant. It's very sulfuric, so if you think of eggs, you know, it normally has this sulfuric scent to it. But when you add it to the tofu, that sulfur translates into a very eggy taste and very eggy smell. So you can easily mimic the taste and texture of eggs using tofu. So my dears, it has been a couple of minutes, and the only thing now that we're going to add to the scrambles is freshly chopped parsley, and that will give a nice flavor to it. And that's it. Wasn't that easy, darlings? That's how quick and easy it is to make your own tofu scrambles at home. When you go vegan, you don't have to worry so much about some of the things that you no longer eat. In fact, going vegan explores you to a whole new world of flavors and textures. Perhaps if I weren't vegan, I wouldn't know anything about the Indian black salt and some of the things that I use. So I'm thankful for that. So rather than think of it as being restrictive, think of it as opening a whole new world of food to you. We're going to add our tofu scrambles to some hash brown potatoes. Yeah, a little bit of avocado, and my absolute favorite, which is my spicy mayonnaise. It's really vegan mayonnaise. Sometimes I use just mayo, sometimes I use Vegemese, and add a little bit of either hot sauce or sriracha sauce if I'm feeling rather spicy. Then I transfer it to the squeeze bottles, add a little bit of salt and pepper to the plate, and we're done. Darlings, how delicious and beautiful and lovely this is. You can make this at home. Just visit DaJeneats.com for this specific recipe and many other recipes. If you have any questions, be sure to drop me an email. I'd love to hear from you. Guys, I present to you Jenn's Tofu Scramble. It doesn't get much easier than this. Guys, it has been a pleasure hanging out with you. This is Jenn from DaJen Eats, home of the Irie Happy Vegan. Let's cook together.